Okay, so we're going to take this opportunity to look at a variation on foam contouring. Almost all of the stuff you do as a crate packer and in general using foam tends to be a subtractive process. You're basically carving foam. And that's, a whole skill set. It's really fun. It's really interesting to become adept at that. But one thing that people don't do that can be really nice and has its place in the world is additive foam contouring. And so it sort of shows up pretty well in this instance. Because we were doing the guillotine here, we go for a broad area of foam. That's what we're shooting for. But pretty much by definition, it's pretty flat. That's not necessarily going to conform to the shapes. You can see here, there's this nice block that normally you'd build that up and carve, and then you're losing ground. In another way, it's good to get contact and then add to the foam until you contact more of the area. So in this case, so you can see when this goes on here, this is extending over this. That's a good idea, because then you can come back and trim it. And in particular, when we're doing additive that's really nice, because it makes it look cleaner. And here you can see I've already made a slit in here. And so normally it'd be like that, and I just took a cut where I think I want it to go, just like you would there. And this is extending out for good reason. And that is that, as we go in here, we can just pick out some different wedges. I had some other smaller ones that didn't fit, but basically we're going to just work with these and see what we get in terms of moving the remainder of that foam back to contact the piece more completely. And so that feels pretty good. That looks pretty good. And of course you could do the bottom edge if you wanted to, but this primarily has a backward lean on the top. So you can see that's changed the shape of it considerably. And this is the same density foam, so it's going to be good. It gives you a nice smooth contact. The next step would be to go ahead and fix those in place. And to do that, you want to make sure you're going down deep enough, because you want to trim this when you're done. So you basically try not to lose your place. And that's where having a narrow tip glue gun can be very, very handy with this kind of detail. And you could do these, kind of one at a time too. Like here's a gap, I could come back and do that. Or not, whatever. But that's gonna do what we want. We'll kind of push it back, we'll double check. And then after the glue sets up, we can go in and trim that. And it'll look like we actually knew what we were doing. So we'll do that in a sec. All right, so here we've got this kind of contour that we've done by pushing these wedges in, which is pretty nice. The one thing that is worth mentioning here is that those are glued in. They're going to make it nice and firm. But since whenever you shoot your hot glue inside of foam, between two layers of foam, it's going to take a little while to cool down. There's an insulating quality, so you want to make sure that you give it a little time. You go on and do your other one, do whatever else you can do, and then come back and trim it. Otherwise, you're going to find, when you go to cut it, that you goop up your knife and get your blade kind of gooped, and then you have to take the time out to actually clean it off, with another blade or whatever. That's not really what we want to do. Here's a nifty knife that's pretty addictive for all sorts of things, especially for lining things up and trimming. In this case, you can basically kind of try and trim it anywhere you want to. Like we could make our first cut, that would be across the top if we wanted to have that be the level. Or probably more likely in this kind of case, you can make a cut that makes it even with the rest of the brace. Or the rest of the foam, I should say. So you've got this kind of thing going on there. You then have, by pushing this out, you've got a little tag over here you're going to trim off. Same thing over here has happened. And now you have a couple options. You can just leave it as is, which is, whatever, that's functional. You can, by making this a plane, you could heat weld a quick thing of Velara over there. Or you could, one of probably the most common things would be to go ahead and do a Tyvek cover in this whole thing. Normally, if you're doing that, you would need to take off this sharp point before you go over it, and then you do a tuck. So that's going to be pretty slick, pretty quick, totally accurate thing. We know it's accurate because we pushed it up against it with the wedges. We pushed the wedge as far as it needed to go and no further, and we made them even in contact, and it's kind of a done deal, and it's kind of slick. Folks like it. That makes for a relatively slick, totally accurate foam contact for your brace. Works on a straight brace as well. Just another option.